Check this out, 1985. Another story. This one's 40 years old. This one has two titles, Jonathan the Nerd, which is me, also called I Will Never Forget. I met Jonathan when I was 5. We always were the smartest kids, but he had the best ideas. Ow! My cat just jumped on me. Holy shit. Here, get off. Dude, you gotta get off. Ow, that hurt. Okay. Most kids our age would party and stay out drinking, but Jonathan and me, we never did. One night, Jonathan and I went to an arcade. All the dope heads and hell-raising kids were there. Some were drinking beer. Others didn't really know what world they were in. As far as Jonathan and myself, we just played video games. When I got home, my mom said, "Wilbur, you better get to bed." My mom was very strict. She always made sure I didn't stay out late on Friday night. Monday at school was the same. I just did my work, made A's, and didn't let anyone copy me. And that's why no one liked me. People always picked on me and Jonathan because we were so smart. We were sort of nerds. I didn't wear glasses, and occasionally I would pick on a girl, but Jonathan never did. He had 4 eyes and enough freckles to cover his face brown. When I was walking out of the lunch line, one of the dope heads tripped me. I had ketchup all over me, and food was all over my face. As I lay there on the floor embarrassed, everyone in the cafeteria laughed at me. "Ha ha, look at Wilbur," the dopehead said as he laughed. His name was Mike. He was a school bully. When I got up, I took his Kool-Aid and poured it in his lap and said, "Oh, I'm sorry." Everyone was going, "Ooh." He got up and threw his steak fingers at me. Luckily, I ducked, but it hit a dude behind me. The next thing you know, all hell broke loose and a food fight was on. People were throwing hamburgers, french fries, drinks, you name it. Things got really out of hand. Even Mike and I had a blast talking about it at the principal's office after the food fight had stopped. When I got home, I dodged my mother. I simply threw my clothes in the laundry and read a book. "How was school today?" said Mom, with this awkward-looking face. I said, the usual. I didn't think Mom suspected nothing, so I invited Jonathan over for dinner that night. When I got back to school, I was feeling great. I didn't get expelled, having such a clean record. Mike didn't either. He said hi, then he ignored me because I was kind of the upper type. By the time third period came, I felt as good as I ever had before. Everyone had said, "No, Wilbur, you're not as bad after all." As for Jonathan, he was still a nerd. When I got into PE class, I seen Jonathan standing by the locker, and when I got over there, he had a shit-eating grin on his face. "Why the hell did you leave me standing alone at lunch today?" he said. "Come on, it's high school. Time to make new friends." I paused a moment, and before I could say anything, he jumped in my face and said, "It sure is funny you didn't have these friends yesterday." I shoved him out of the way so I could go to find my class. Then he slapped me. Sort of hard, but it didn't sting. I turned around and slapped him against his face lightly, but not violently. I walked away because he was my best friend. Well, was my best friend. The next day came and I was ready for the school dance that night. When I got into reading class, Mike sat behind me and copied my paper. Of course I let him, and he was happy. I think it was the first time he ever had a passing grade. It was already another Friday when I got invited to bring this chick out with the most popular couple in school, John Urban and Cassandra Pierce. I had never double dated in my life. Of course, I never really dated anyway. When we got to the cheap old drive-in movie theater, John and Cassandra had already situated themselves with a few kisses, and they sunk down in the front seat. It was John's car, though, a fine 85 Cutlass that he already had wrecked being stupid one night. John and Cassandra were the upper type of class. They had been going together since the 6th grade. As for me and the chick named Rhonda, we didn't get anywhere. She was scared and didn't like me to even put my arm around her. As I watched this lame movie called The Hope of Alabama, Cassandra made a funny noise. John must have been having a good time making out with her in the front seat. Rhonda whispered, "I'm going to see what's going on up there." When she started to look, I pulled her back for being nosy. She gave me a dirty look and I did the same towards her. "What's going on back there?" John said as he looked over the seat. I heard a shifting noises. I figured they were necking. I walked out of the car and I walked all the way home. I didn't feel like putting up with Rhonda. As the weekend passed, I knew that exams would be coming up because there was only 5 weeks left the first semester of my freshman year. As I went to my locker on Tuesday, I felt good knowing that people started liking me. I didn't go to school Monday because I was sick. When Thursday came, everyone was excited about the snow. We knew we didn't have to go to school if it snowed. So anyway, John and Cassandra decided to have their 3-year anniversary party that Thursday night, not knowing for sure if we had school or not the next day. By the time I arrived at the big party, everyone was having a good time. Some were getting drunk, the upperclassmen were, but for the most part there was no beer. It was a dry party. It was held at a place called the Party House, where you can rent the place for the night. Apparently adults had rented it for them. After I got through drinking some sodas, I went out to use the John. Well, there really wasn't a John. I just didn't feel like finding my way to the bathroom because I was dying to make water. I went outside. It was freezing, but no sign of snow. Yet, as I stood there in the chilling dark night, I heard some laughing and went around back, and John and Cassandra were necking again. John was cuddled with her as they stuffed a blanket between them. There beside them was a bottle of Jack Daniels, and so I poured way too much of it into my soda. I knew something was going on serious between them, so I walked away. The next morning, the clock's alarm went off. I stood up dizzy and sick, then went to the bathroom where I threw up everything I had eaten the night before. My mom ran in to give me some aspirin, where she griped at me for having a hangover. As I started to walk back to my bedroom to go back to bed, my mom said, "Where do you think you're going?" "Back to bed," I said, as I yawned. "You know there's school today." I was shocked. My head was pounding with pain as I stood there shivering like a hairless dog in the cold. I knew if I stayed home, I had to lose my allowance and restriction and my third unexcused absence, which was a suspension. I got ready for school and walked out the door feeling terrible. I got on the bus and sat down realizing how much I have changed and to think that me and Jonathan were no longer friends. When I walked into class, I saw no people like me. Everyone besides me was sober. No one had hangovers because the big party John and Cassandra had was dry, besides what I took from John and Cassandra's stash. Everyone thought there'd be no school, but we were wrong. That's the way weather is in Tennessee. The upperclassmen were dropping like flies in honor classes that I attended, and apparently people had partied everywhere the night before in hopes that there would be no school. The week was dead, no parties, nothing, just rain and boring. I didn't have much to worry about Monday. It was already the last week of school. The weeks were just flying by. The last 4 days were moving at the last 4 days we were getting into a paper fight. Mike the dopehead got busted for dealing drugs on campus. Everyone else was ready for winter break. I had to go to the office for raising my voice at the teacher. The weirdest thing happened when I walked to the office. Cassandra was crying up a steam with all her high school friends, her high class friends around her. As I walked to the hall to see what was the matter with her, she just sat there crying. "What's the matter?" I said. "John broke up with me," she said, and she continued crying. She grabbed my arm and pushed the girls aside, told me to leave so she could talk to me. We talked together down the hall the last day of school, and she said, she couldn't get it out. She wiped her eyes, tried to get it all out, all at once. "I'm pregnant," she said, with tears just pouring out of her face. I knew why John had broken up with her, so I headed to the office where I stayed until school was out. When the bell rang, everyone was screaming and happily crying tears of joy that they were out of school for 3 weeks, which was not really a big deal. Anyway, I shook my friend's hand and went up to John and the guys. "John, you're wrong." He said, he basically laughed at me and said, "That's life, cuz." And that's what we used to call each other back in the day, cuz, C-U-Z. It's an old 1985 saying that came from Texas. I don't know if people still use it. Back to the story. I got real pissed off and I screamed. Then we got into it. People began surrounding us. I shoved the back of his head toward the ground. I was on top of him and almost half the school surrounded as a counselor broke up the fight, which stopped quickly. Anyways, my chest was a little sore because he had kicked me. I'm not bragging, but the man was kind of a wimp, and everyone probably would remember this fight forever. As the crowd broke up, I was just sitting there on the ground. Then everyone was gone. I thought I was seeing things, but no, Jonathan was helping me up as I shook his hand and apologized. Hey, cuz, sorry for the big scuffle we had. We shouldn't make a big deal out of it anyway. I understand, he said, and we walked home, ready to party the winter away. John and Cassandra got back together as her pregnancy turned out to be a false. In 1985 was a great year for a nerdy freshman like me. Sean Kennedy Turner, June 23rd, 1985. Hope you enjoy my story. As you can see, it's another one of my stories. I only have 2 of them left. I wrote 10 of them. This story, this paper is about to deteriorate, so I converted it to video. Sorry, this one was a little bit longer. My last video was 8 minutes and 31 seconds. This one's about 11 minutes and 45 seconds. I hope you enjoy it. It is a work of fiction. I went to West Orange Stark High School in Orange, Texas, and this is where I wrote it. Have a wonderful day, guys.